I guess that's what I have to do.
Well, hello. Good morning. It has been a while. Michael and Israel here with Bucks Island. I missed you guys. I miss sitting down and doing this. I'm the one responsible for us not being here. So I've been out for a little bit, but all back, all good. Shane, what's going on?
What up?
Man, he's been killing it in the Avid group, answering a bunch of questions in there for people with the new Avids.
Well, good. Good.
So we appreciate that, man, and always giving us a good shout out. So, guys, we're back with Tech Tuesday. So drop a question now. If you're watching this on a shared post inside of a group, make sure you click into Bucks Island into our actual post to drop your comment, or else we can't see the question.
That's right.
We'll have to go back and we can get back to it later after the fact, but we can't see it live. There's only so much we can do with technology, you know.
Right. Especially when it keeps changing.
Yes, yeah. Facebook's always making odd changes. So, but so how's service going?
It's busy.
Y'all staying busy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Service, rigging, all of it.
Yeah.
Sales.
We're more than a couple weeks out on getting boats in for service, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't let that hold you back. I guess I would definitely, if you were thinking about getting your boat in and getting it ready for the season, the sooner the better. You can call and get an appointment made. The better off you're going to be.
We did get some new hires in, so that's
Yep.
hopefully going to speed the process up a little bit.
So, all right. Well, let's jump into some questions and not bore you with a bunch of chitter chatter. Derek Smith, what would cause a show to make oil after just being serviced? Motor had about 300 hours and is ran hard every trip out.
Well, the first thing I can think of is it's wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these engines are notorious for making a little bit of oil. I don't know how much it's made, but it's notorious in the wintertime because it takes a lot longer for them to warm up from
Gotcha.
being cool. And if you stop and fish, they cool off pretty much immediately. So when you crank them up, a lot of people don't think to warm the motor up,
Gotcha.
above a certain temperature. So the temperature we're looking for is typically about 113 degrees is what the engine needs to be at
Okay.
before you take off. And if it's not, then it's gonna drown that motor with fuel. The other thing is if you're somebody that stops a lot, and I call them power fishermen, where they stop, fish for about 5-10 minutes, and then take off about a mile down the lake. Even if
Right.
you're running it hard,
Right.
you'll make oil. I mean, you're just going to do it because not only is the engine colder, you're accelerating real fast, and when you come out of the hole, that thing is throwing fuel to it. So if you're doing that, more likely you're going to make some fuel. If you're idling a lot, you're going to make fuel. Or make oil
Make oil.
make oil with fuel. So the only thing I can tell you to try is, if you do idle a lot doing, graphing and stuff, to ease up on plane and then run it hard after that. And if you're stopping and fishing, a lot and not running it very far, you may want to let it warm up a little bit
Okay.
and then ease up on plane on these colder days.
So,
But it takes a lot of making oil for it to do any damage.
okay.
So
So with the cold temperatures, and obviously a lot of guys are idling these days with the graphs and all that kind of stuff. Do you need to, if you're just idling around, do you need to keep an eye on the motor temperature
yeah,
if
I
you're
mean,
not running
if
enough?
you're idling a lot, the temperature should stay above
113.
113.
Okay.
I'm thinking in the cold weather, it's probably going to, you know, average somewhere around 120, you know, somewhere around there. But if it's not going above that number, if it's staying below 113 degrees all the time, then you may have an issue
Right.
Probably a thermostat or something.
So maybe keep with the trend of slowing down that fishing in the cold weather, and let that motor idle or warm up a little bit more each time you're making a move.
Yeah. And people don't realize that the oil is, if you don't trim, you can probably trim the motor up a little bit,
Yeah.
and that'll get the oil out of the water. If the oil's sitting in cold water, it's going to cool off, 2-3 minutes.
Gotcha.
It's like a cooler.
All right. Well, Derek, I hope that gives you some help, maybe some peace of mind. Let's see here, Joe. I have a 2012 Bentley 240 Cruise. How low should the motor be mounted on the transom? 115 Merc. It's mounted all the way down in a is that cavitation plate?
Mm-hmm.
Is 3 and lower than the bottom of the transom. Is this too low?
Well, the top, there's two plates. There's one on the front, and then there's one that's below. And so, what we usually do is we keep that bigger one above the transom. The other one is going to fall below because that's actually the anti-cavitation part. That
Okay.
it's got to be in the water. But the other one is a deflector, so it needs
Okay.
to be above the water. So yeah, it'll be in the water. Um, in in reality, we usually set them on hole number 2 from the top.
Okay.
Anywhere from hole number 1 to hole number 3. It could be
Right.
any of them. So it depends on the prop you're running, but a good place to be is around hole number 2 because you get the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You get a little bit of performance, and you don't have to worry about it blowing out when you're going to run a turn, or if you load the front of the boat up with people. If you have it too high, then it'll blow out.
Yeah.
We've had people,
right.
that want them higher, and they run good with it, just 2 people in there, and they'll put about 3 friends up front, and then they'll be going down the lake, and it'll just blow out on them. So,
especially you get whipping the tubes around and all that kind of stuff. Now, Joe, I would say, is the boat performing the way you want and expect it before you go moving a bunch of stuff?
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good policy. So.
All right. Shane, I sold a boat for y'all. Yeah, can't pump gas in.
I don't think we've had an issue.
Yeah.
Another issue. Is yours still?
They got yours fixed, right, Shane?
Hope so.
I thought there was something with the
valves.
Yeah, the valve for the EPA. Shane, I'm serious. I appreciate you talking up the Avid Owners Group. If you're interested in aluminum boats, there's a bunch of good guys. We just started that group about 2 months ago, and we're up about 550, 600 folks, some owners and some guys doing research. Philip Faulkner Jr., the owner of Avid, has been very active, answering a lot of questions. So it's been good. All right, Ron, I had a battery die in a tournament. Had to get one delivered and switched out to continue. Do you support adding a switch that will allow a simple way to get power from trolling batteries if need be? 2020.
Matter of fact, the FXR actually comes with that system. The only thing, honestly, that I don't like about using a switch like that, you have to put the engine the engine positive on the switch, and they do that on the FXRs. But I see a lot of problems when you do that. Cranking the motor up, it turns your graphs off because it's having to pull a lot of current across that switch. And it's not that the switch is poor design. It's just anytime you put a brake in anything,
right,
it can cause an air gap or etching and stuff like that on those terminals. So that's really the only issue I find with putting the engine on the switch. Which all the scooters come with the engines on the switches, and nearly every one of them that's running 2 graphs, it cuts the graphs off when you crank your motor up. And if you got Solixes, If you have a helix, it's not such a bad thing because
Mhm.
they'll crank right back up.
Right.
But if you do that to a Solix too many times, it's dead.
Mhm.
So people are having notorious issues with that. I'm having to put the main battery cable from the engine
Gotcha.
to the cranking battery anyway. So
How would if you want to spend the money and get that power pole charger, would that open up any more
yeah,
options?
and so it's got a built-in switch. It'll actually, even if you're running a single 36-volt lithium battery, it'll convert that into a 12-volt jump, and you just do it through your app. So it does work. $1,200, but it is nice.
I mean, I've heard a lot of good feedback, at least on that system. So,
Yeah,
um, but I mean, with guys talking about spending the money on lithium batteries and all that kind of stuff, what's another $1,200?
right, right.
Um,
And if you get a lithium cranker and you run any Yamaha, for sure you have to use that system anyway, or it shuts the engine down.
yeah.
So,
Which battery conversations seem to be happening a lot
yeah, yeah.
the last few months. Well, guys, if you've got more questions, drop them in there. I've got just a couple that I found in some of the groups. Um, I think I know your answer on this. Is it a sin to repower a Skeeter with a Merc?
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm.
So if you do have guys that have an older Skeeter and it is equipped with a Merc, I mean, what are some things to consider if you're gonna, if you're looking at repowering?
Well,
Maybe making the choice number one between the two. Obviously it should be easier to go Merc to Merc, right?
yeah, yeah. Anytime you're swapping stuff out, it's easier to go the same motor to the same motor for the most part because it's plug and play. Unless you got a really old boat and you really need new controls and stuff, or some of the wire harnesses are different, then either way. But the main thing that you're going to have to do if you do that is you're going to change all the controls out, the throttle and shift cable. And that includes a hot foot. You may have to get a different hot foot because some hot foots are proprietary, to the manufacturer, and some of them are universal. You're going to have to probably pull oil tanks out or put oil tanks in, depending on what you got. So
All right.
key switch.
Well, I know occasionally I see some older Skeeters come through here with the Mercs on them.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, here was another one I found. Whenever I get home from work and open the garage, it always smells like gas. It's got a 2006 Yamaha VMAX HPDI 175 Ranger bass boat. Any thoughts on what could be happening there?
Well, my first inclination is what's the temperature in your garage from when you leave at the beginning of the day till, if it's really cool and you filled your boat up on the way home all the way to the top,
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting it in a cool garage, and by the time you get home it's warm, that gas expands
Yeah.
with heat, and it's going to create vapors, and that your boat doesn't have a sealed, gas tank. It's got a vent, and
Right.
so it's gonna exude all those, you know, those vapors in your garage. And if you got a very well insulated garage, it's going to make it worse. So,
Well,
so that'd be the question. So if you fish, you may not want to fill the boat all the way up. Maybe put, fill up on the way to the lake, and maybe open a window.
yeah.
You know,
I was, I mean, coming
you
from
may have a heated garage.
the aviation background, I've seen it where, in the morning you go out and you fill up an airplane, and, most airplanes, your fuel tanks are right on the wings, just
Yeah.
sitting flush, and they don't necessarily have all the fancy vents. And if you don't get airborne until, midday and it's super warm, you got fuel dripping off your wings. That fuel expands. So that's something to consider when you're trying to squeak out, especially if you get that good price on that fuel and you're trying to get every last ounce you can. Something to consider. So, all right. I saw Ron had another question about, just curious, any rumblings that Yamaha coming out with a newer version of the show?
No, I'm hoping they'll release a 300. I mean, they've already released the 300 SHO in the offshore, so they usually do. They usually cater to the offshore side of things first, and then they ease into the bass world. So they do have a mechanical SHO offshore
Okay.
engine, and that'd be the only rumbling I would know of. They
All
don't
right.
tell us anything.
Well, now
They're pretty secretive. They got things locked down pretty tight. But I would assume at some point they're going to come out with a 300
I hope this
version.
year they're just focused on building what they already got because
Yeah, yeah,
we need
yeah.
motors out there. But now with Mercury's new 600 out, have you looked much at that thing? The
Yeah,
600 they released with the the lower unit that does all the
yeah. It
turning and
uses the Zeus
yeah.
platform and turns the lower unit instead of the motors. No, because I don't think we'll see that here very much because it's more of a big boat
I
kind of.
bet we're going to get at least one person that comes and wants a pontoon with a 600 on the back of it. So they may not get to buy it once we tell them how much it'll cost.
Yeah,
Uh,
77 grand for just the motor. Yeah,
but yeah, horsepower is getting out there.
yeah.
All right.
And V12 as well. So,
That sounds like a lot of moving parts to
yeah,
break.
it's probably a Lamborghini engine or something. They love V12s over there.
All right. We'll make this. Let's see. I heard a rumor that completely filling the fuel tank caused running issues with the show.
Yeah, good. Yeah, yeah. Because if you overfill it, if you just keep on clicking it, there's a carbon canister in there where it actually vents into that cap, and then once the pressure gets so high, it blows off. But if you keep filling it up, it's going to fill up that carbon canister,
Yeah.
and then it'll still release pressure out. But when you're running down the lake, it's going to create a vacuum on the tank and not suck. It's a lot easier to push out than it is to suck in.
Right.
So it'll cause a vacuum, and where you'll end up seeing it is when you run a long run and you come off a plane and you're trying to idle past a bridge or something, it'll go dead. And then the only thing that you can do then is crack the gas cap, and it'll go close it back, and it'll
So
pump the bubble up and go on again.
that's not necessarily unique to the show. That
And
has
that's
more to
any
do with the fuel system and
yeah because they're
the vent valve.
it's any boat now. I don't care if it's a Phoenix, a Nitro, a Skeeter Ranger. Doesn't matter. They all have the same EPA compliant fuel. They may have a different system because there's about 3 companies that make the systems. Perco's one of them, and then Atwood's another, and then I think there's another one out there. So, and they have different variations of how they do things. So.
Okay. Well, are you able to get Mercury parts in regular now?
For the most part, yeah, it's still slow. So.
Yeah, I mean,
And right now, it's if I'm getting anything out of Fond du Lac, it's going to be real late because of all the ice storms we've been having.
yeah, it seems like everything's been, I mean, across the board, certainly moving slower than would be desired. And it's production's down some for it seems most, but the demand at the end of last season just sucked so much stuff out of the inventory. So, I mean, that being said, for folks that are thinking about getting a new boat, I mean, do it sooner rather than later. It sounds like a pressure sales, but it's just the way it is.
If there's one to get.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of the Skeeters. I know at least a good chunk of the next few loads of pontoons coming in are already sold. So, I mean, we're honestly saying that because we don't want people to be disappointed when they come in here, in the end of March, or you wait until the end of April, and then you finally want to get out on the water. That's going to be real slim pickings.
But the good news is we're still getting trade-ins on these that are coming in. So there's some.
We're getting some boats in.
There's some used boat inventory coming in, but they go pretty quick too. So.
Well, and I think we're even getting. I mean, it looks like the tackle store. I know. I mean, even some of the tackle suppliers are. I mean, they're trying to get stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, we've still got what you need in the loft. At least for whatever's biting now. But looking forward to warmer weather. Some of these hardcore anglers, I've been seeing them absolutely nutso. But hey, you do you. If you want to get out the teens and go fishing.
We've been doing it.
That's good on you. I admire the passion. How about that?
That's right.
So, all right, guys, I think we're going to jump out of here and get back to work. Go eat some Mikasitas. I think is coming in. So
not sponsored yet, but
not sponsored. That was a freebie. So if you're in the Southside area, but guys, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the questions. Genuinely hope some of it helps. And if you need more and more detailed help, particularly if it's not something you think you can handle yourself, by all means call early and get something scheduled to get in and get your boat looked at. All right, guys, we will see you next week.